Welcome to the Women's Connection. I'm Barrie-Louise Switzen, your moderator. The Women's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power on a personal or professional level. So won't you stay tuned? Thank you for joining us. Today I have Dr. Loretta Mears, who's going to explain to us how to stay healthy in today's living environment. She is a doctor who combines her chiropractic practice with being a clinical certified nutritionist. And I want to welcome Dr. Loretta Mears.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining me. Why don't we just start off with a little bit about your background and what exactly do you do?
I have a practice in New York City. I've been a chiropractor and a nutritionist for more than 15 years now. My focus is on preventative health care, although I do deal with acute cases as they come into the office.
Now, what made you decide to become a chiropractor? Or did I pronounce this right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I have, earlier in my career, in my 20s, was always fascinated with holistic health care. It was in the radical 60s, and there were lots of changes going on in the healthcare movement. And the women's health movement in particular was focusing on ways to empower the patient as opposed to having doctors have all the power in the doctor-patient exchange. And that opened up my interest in ways to help individuals be healthy without being dependent on the traditional healthcare system. And so I started studying a lot about herbs and nutrition and took several courses. And my first practice was as a nutritionist. And then after I moved to New York, I realized that with the changing healthcare environment, I needed more certification. So I became a chiropractor. I went to chiropractic school.
So you went from being a nutritionist to being a chiropractor. That just, I guess it goes hand in hand because, as I understand it, you manipulate the spine to help individuals.
Chiropractic is a healthcare art and science. It's based on the idea and the concept that the brain and the spinal cord control the functions in the body. And the protective vertebra around the spinal cord can sometimes, in chiropractic terms, become subluxated, misaligned.
Well, thank you.
And those misalignments can cause inflammation, stagnation of fluid in the spinal, cerebral spinal fluid as it flows through the spinal cord. And as a result, there can be some subsequent problems in terms of neck pain, thoracic pain, low back pain. Usually people complain about neck pain and low back pain. But chiropractors are also trained and adept at dealing with problems in the extremities, knees, ankles, wrists. And nutrition has always been part of the chiropractic philosophy. I just bring up more background to that already basic skill.
Okay, some of the things that you said, the back and the neck, are two, what would you say, the most common ailments that people come to you for?
I'd say that most people have low back pain.
All right.
But I've seen an increase in neck and shoulder problems because of people carrying heavy backpacks now in the wrong way. Backpacks, when they started out in the 60s, we used to go camping all the time. And we'd have these huge backpacks with padded straps, and we wore them tight against our shoulders. And now backpacks have become a fashion statement. And we sling them off one shoulder, and they're loaded with almost the same amount of material and weight. And people end up with neck and shoulder problems as a result.
So what is the proper way to carry a backpack?
It should be, the straps should be padded, and they should be adjustable so that once you've loaded the backpack and put it on both shoulders, not just one, you can then adjust the straps tightly and pull it up so it's resting against your back and not swaying from side to side. And certainly not resting on the top of your buttocks, as a lot of people carry them.
Well, that's going to be a lot more comfortable, though.
It is more comfortable.
but it's not proper and it does more damage than good.
Right. And it's harder to get backpack off. I mean, one of the reasons you carry it on one shoulder so that you can take it off quickly and look inside.
True.
If it's on two shoulders,
It's
you
a
have
big
to then,
production.
right, it's a big production.
Now, what about sitting at a computer terminal? Is that
Computer work has definitely increased the sorts of musculoskeletal problems that I see in my office. Carpal tunnel syndrome is one of the repetitive stress injuries that I see a lot. But neck and shoulder problems, headaches. Most people don't know that there are what we call ergonomic ways to set up a computer workstation. And ergonomics is based on the idea that the workstation is set up to fit that individual. So women, for example, have shorter legs and shorter trunk sizes than men. So they need chairs that are lower, their desks need to be lower, and if that can't happen, then they need something underneath their feet so that their knees are elevated.
So what is the proper angles that everybody should be sitting at?
It's really very individual. What I tell people is actually to bring me a photograph of their workstation so that I can help them figure out how to change things around. But it's not uncommon, for example, for someone to have their keyboard in one place, the monitor in another, and have the phone in a third place, so that they end up twisted and contorted, and at the end of the day they can't figure out why they have a neck ache or why their low back hurts.
Well, of course, you're on the phone and your head is squinched over here,
Right.
holding the phone, and you're typing away, and then the mouse
Exactly.
is over here, so it's
Exactly.
like you're really out of whack.
One of the great things I think for the modern working environment has been headsets. I tell people who talk on the phone a lot to get one of those headsets. They're very inexpensive now, and they really eliminate the need for the phone to be between your shoulder and your ear and takes a lot of strain off your neck.
That sounds like a great idea. Sounds like something I should go buy tomorrow to eliminate the neck, the tired neck,
Right.
the crink, and I say, oh, wow. What else would you say? Okay, for the back, lower back, you're saying a lot of people are coming to see you because of lower back problems.
Mm-hmm.
What is the common thing that people do that throws their back out?
They sit all the time.
They sit.
Human beings went upright very recently in terms of evolution, and we are not designed to sit in chairs or on sofas. Native people squat, they kneel, they do all sorts of things, but they don't sit in chairs all the time. It puts a tremendous amount of strain on the low back. The people who have the most low back pain are truck drivers and secretaries, and now computer operators, because they sit all the time. So the first thing I tell people is you have to get up at least every half hour, move away from your desk, and do some simple stretches that I have printed up to demonstrate, and I have them tape it up on the wall. And even if they say there's no way I'm going to get up every half hour, then I have them move away from the desk, even if they stay sitting in the chair, and there's some stretches that can be done to help ease the strain in the low back, to increase blood flow, and to just change your focus. People don't realize that actually that 30-second stretch will increase their production and increase their ability to stay tuned into the job. It won't decrease it.
What immediately came to mind while you're saying everybody's sitting stationary, what about when you're on a plane? You can't always get up. So
Actually, you can. And I tell people all the time, especially if it's a long flight, cross-country or to Europe, to get up and move to the back of the plane after all the food service and the beverage service is done and stretch.
what kind of stretches? Are they the same kind of stretches that you would recommend to somebody
Well,
who's been
I don't
sitting
tell them to lie down on the floor, but they can do standing stretches very easily. They can do wall slides against the doors of lavatories. There really are several exercises that you can do to relieve back strain while you're on a plane flight.
What's a slide, a back slide? You walk on with your hands, or?
Actually, it involves putting your shoulders and your buttocks flat against a wall
Okay.
with your head and bending your knees so that you slide down against the wall while you breathe deeply, and it eases the low back muscles.
So that if your back is tired or
Right.
achy, you can rest against the wall and slide up and down.
With your feet a couple of inches away from the wall. It's a very slow, deliberate stretch, basically.
Oh, interesting. So you could do that almost anywhere.
That's right.
When you're standing on a subway, you can always
Right.
do it.
Well, I do that all the time. I stretch my lower legs or my back. People sometimes look at you a little weird, but it's better than ending up with back pain because you don't want to be stared at.
Well, that's true, because then you're hunched over and you walk
And
funny and
this
everything
is New
else.
York City. People stare at everybody anyway.
Well, that's true. It's like everything that's ordinary, I mean, out of the ordinary is ordinary in New York.
Exactly. That's right.
Now, okay, so if you're traveling, you can exercise. If you're sitting at the computer, you can exercise.
You can stretch in the airports.
Mm-hmm. Just very simple flexing
Right.
stretches.
Using the chair, you can stretch out your legs. Exercise. They actually in some small towns and airports, they have, like they do in the malls, they have exercise groups that walk around the airports. They
Oh,
have
no kidding.
people meet in the parking lot and go into the airport and walk up and down the terminals because it's wide open space.
And it's covered, and you can
Absolutely,
go in any weather.
any weather. And there are coffee shops so you can have a snack after it's all over.
Right, so there goes your calories and
Right.
everything that you've been working off.
It's possible to exercise anywhere and to stretch anywhere. I think the real issue is people have to incorporate it into their lives. One of the things that I have found is there are lots of people now who are on the fitness kick.
Mm-hmm.
They go to gyms all the time. They love it. It's something they do. It helps them feel good. A lot of people haven't been able to figure out how to incorporate exercise into their daily lives because it seems so arbitrary. Suddenly you stop doing what you're doing. You change into exercise clothes and you go to the gym and you do all this stuff and then you go back to a regular life. And in truth, when I was young, exercise was something you did every day. I remember I have a 10-year-old who comes to see me, and he was talking about taking the bus to school. And I said, how far is school? And he said 10 blocks.
10 blocks and he takes the bus?
And he takes the bus. And I remembered that walking a mile to school back and forth every day in the snow and the rain was something you just did. And I don't want to sound like an old fogey saying, in my day, but it's one way to incorporate exercise into your daily life. If your work is right at the subway, get off a stop away and walk the rest of the way. It's one way to start exercising. If you live in an apartment building with stairs, take the stairs up and down. Even if you just take it to the 3rd floor, then get off at the 3rd floor and take the elevator up to the 7th floor, wherever your apartment is. It's a gradual way of incorporating exercise.
Can you over-exercise?
Of course, you can overdo anything. But I think the key issue is if you proceed slowly, if you haven't been exercising at all, if you pay attention to what hurts and slow down or stop when you have pain, it's unlikely that you're going to over-exercise. But exercise can become addiction like anything.
There's a couple things that you mentioned in all the articles that you gave me to read about yourself, which was really very enlightening, and I've got a lot of questions to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them, you were talking about the lower back pain problem, where a lot of women would come to you because of period problems, and it was low back pain, and it was constipation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I never thought of them all being incorporated or combined.
Mm-hmm.
What suggestions would you give to women to eliminate all the problems that they might have?
Well, there are several different issues here.
Okay.
Menstrual problems can be related to digestive function and bowel function, but they could also be a function of nutritional habits. Women who drink coffee,
Yeah.
black tea, who eat a lot of chocolate, lots of sugar, high-fat diet, are going to have, not all of them, but some of them are going to have some hormonal imbalances. And over a monthly cycle, over time, that can end up causing menstrual problems. So one of the things that I usually suggest to people who come in complaining about PMS or lots of cramping is I have them do a 2-week food and symptom diary where they talk about everything that they eat and how they feel after a meal. And then I go through and do an analysis of whether or not their diet supports good health. And oftentimes, we tend to look at each individual body part as separate. I have menstrual cramps, I have a skin rash, I have headaches, and we go to a different doctor for each thing. When actually, if the issue is you eat 3 donuts for breakfast and a cup of coffee, and for lunch you have a bagel with cream cheese, and dinner is a hamburger and french fries, your diet is not supporting health, so I'm not surprised you have a rash, headaches, and menstrual cramps. So you
That's
have
a real
to
food
do.
junkie.
Well, but you'd be surprised the number of people who eat like that. A lot of people still don't know
Really?
how important fruits and vegetables are. And they consider the lettuce on a sandwich a vegetable serving.
Oh, geez.
So I
Okay.
think there's even though there's been a lot of information in the press about how important fruits and vegetables are. For example, the school system still does not offer a really decent alternative for lunch. And
Oh, that's a shame.
if you work in the corporate environment and you have half an hour for lunch or 45 minutes for lunch, running out to the deli, which is usually one of the corner delis, and getting the salad bar, it's a very high salt, high fat menu, and the vegetables are there, but when you add all the other things that are put in, one ends up canceling out the other.
Just a quick thought. Do they put a lot of MSG in those salad bars?
Absolutely, they do as a rule. You need to ask if you are reactive to MSG, or it's not just MSG. Sometimes they actually coat things with sulfites. Potatoes and some of the vegetables that would turn yellow or dry out. They actually mix sulfite in to keep them looking fresher longer than they would be otherwise.
Wonderful. No wonder I get violent headaches from this stuff, because I am
Right.
allergic to MSG.
Right. A lot of
That's
people are. And I tell people you have to ask. There are a few that actually put a sign up that say they don't use MSG. You also don't want to go to a salad bar where what you're buying looks fresh, but everything else is dried out and wrinkled or looks like it's been there for hours. I guarantee you that what they've done is stir it up a little bit or put some more fresh on top. You
Oh,
want
wonderful.
to frequent a salad bar and a deli where you know the food is replaced, not just stirred up with fresh stuff from the kitchen.
I guess the best solution to all that is to really bring your own supplies.
It's hard sometimes. I mean, one of the things I really have to work with people on, especially people who have food allergies or who are in a healing crisis and need a particular kind of diet for a while before they can go back to something that they consider a little more normal. It's very hard to convince people that it's to their benefit on a weekend or on their day off to spend 2 or 3 hours preparing food that they can then take for lunch for the rest of the week. But it really helps because then you know what you've prepared. You know it's going to taste good.
You hope?
And you can put it into small portions over the weekend so you don't have to spend a lot of time preparing it in the morning before you leave for the office or for your job.
It sounds easy, because I remember I used to bring a lot of tuna fish sandwiches to work. And it was like, okay, because once I started reading the packages, my grandmother got me started to read the ingredients and all the
Right.
packages and the packaged meat and everything else, and you talk about the sulfites, and then there's the MSG on a lot of the food that is prepared and packaged. It's really unbelievable.
Right.
So it's like I start reading, and a lot of food I can't eat or I won't eat because of the reaction that I could possibly get.
Right.
The other thing I want to ask you about, you're talking about low back pain and everything else. What are some good sex practices if you've got low back pain?
I think it depends on why you have low back pain. I mean, there are many causes for low back pain. It also depends on whether you're male or female and what positions you find comfortable. But oftentimes, it's not an issue of whether you can have sex or not. It's what position. And that really is very individual, but it is possible with a back problem to figure out how to do it. But oftentimes, especially in terms of chiropractic care,
Right.
we're talking, if someone comes to me with an acute low back problem, if I haven't been able to help them within 2 or 3 weeks, then we're going to try and figure out what else might be going on. But usually, a person is out of significant pain within 3 weeks, and most people can do without sex for 3 weeks until until their backs are better.
Well, you know, it's like if you're traveling or sometimes you carry a piece of luggage, or you're putting it up on the upper rack in the airplane. You throw your whole body out.
Right.
So I didn't know if there was something somebody could do while they're traveling also besides the exercises.
Well, I think at that point, you have to be in tune enough with your body to figure out whether the pain that you're having is because of a muscle spasm. You pulled a muscle, you strained a muscle, or if it's because of spinal misalignment, meaning that there's something possibly going on with the disc. Because if it's a muscle spasm,
Right.
probably moist heat would do a lot to relieve that spasm and alleviate any problems that you're having. If it's a disc problem, then ice would probably be the best application, but for no longer than 15 minutes. And that too would probably help. A disc problem is a little more serious, but the muscle spasm can feel as horrible as if you had a herniated disc.
That's painful.
Yes.
That's very painful.
Actually, all herniated discs aren't painful. I've had plenty of patients who've come in complaining about a neck problem, and as a result of tests, we find out that they had 3 herniated discs in their low back that they didn't even know about that occurred several years ago. So everybody's very individual. Herniated discs don't have to hurt. You don't even have to know you have them.
Spellbound, because I mean, most people that I know who have back problems are in such crucial pain. I know my father always had problems getting up out of a chair because he had lower back pain problems.
And that's really actually more likely to be a function of conditioning.
Oh, really?
After I get people out of the acute phase of pain, the first thing I get them doing is exercising to strengthen their abdominal muscles and to balance the anterior and the front and back thigh muscles, because those are the muscles that really stabilize the pelvis and help support the low back. If you have weak abdominal muscles, I guarantee you at some point you're going to have low back pain. People tend to think that they need to strengthen their low back when they have back pain. It's exactly the opposite. You need to strengthen your abdominal muscles. And sit-ups are not the way to do that.
Oh, how do you do it?
Crunches,
Crunches.
which are modified sit-ups. Sit-ups actually put a strain on the low back. Crunches actually use the abdominal muscles more than sit-ups do. There are also lots of leg raises, not bent leg raises, and movements that you can do with the lower extremities that actually strengthen the abdominal muscles.
Okay. I was going to say, you want to show us, but it's a little difficult here. We're not exactly dressed for it.
Right.
But so there's a lot that one can do just to maintain everyday good health as far as your spine goes. And we can talk at another time about eating properly for good nutrition and healthy lifestyle and all. But in the closing moments of the show, let me ask you this. What would you say for everybody to do to really maintain good health as far as their body goes?
One of the things that I think is most important is that we don't get enough sleep. We tend to think that we can run on anywhere from 6 hours sleep to very few people get 8 hours sleep anymore. If they have families, they have partners, they go to the gym early in the morning, they hang out with friends late at night. And so rarely are they consistently getting enough sleep. I don't think people realize the toll that that takes overall. It makes us less mentally aware. It makes our bodies are less able to handle stress, and we're more likely to catch colds, flu, and have lots of other systematic problems. Next to that, I'd say we don't drink enough water.
How many glasses should we drink?
8 glasses.
Minimum.
Minimum. The equivalent of your mug there. There should be 8 of those a day, spread out during the day, but it's very important. When you work in an office and there's a water cooler that's pretty far down the hall, I basically tell people to buy one of those liter bottles of water and to make sure they finish it before they leave the office, and that they finish another one sometime between the end of the workday and when they go to bed.
That's a lot of water.
It seems like a lot of water, but in truth, it really is what our body needs. We're mostly water.
Well, what are we, 98% water or something?
98% water.
So we need...
And our nerves and our muscles, our digestive system, our lungs, every part of us really depends on having enough water so that the nutrients can move around, so that we run on water and electricity, which causes that fluid to... there's an interaction between the cells and the fluid and the electrical current that keeps us going.
So in order to maintain good health, the first thing everybody should really do is drink at least 8 glasses of water a day, 8 ounces.
Right.
I almost feel like I'd be floating away.
I think you should try it, because actually when people come in and say that they've started doing it, it's hard, but they've started doing it, their skin clears up. If they have dry eye problems or sinus infections or tend to get colds, all of that tends to clear up. Itchy ears, better hair. Water really is very, very important in terms of a healthy body.
Does it matter if it's warm or cold?
Actually, room temperature is how we should take it, but the body does not handle iced drinks very well. We tend to like them, especially in the summer. But I usually tell people to try and avoid cold drinks unless they're really overheated and need to cool down fast.
Oh, that's good because I don't like cold drinks. For some unknown reason, I always get headaches when I drink something cold.
That's actually a nerve reaction.
Oh, really?
The cold is actually your body's giving you a warning that you've been chilled, and the headache is a warning that you should warm the fluid up.
Oh, well, I guess I'm reacting to my
Some
body.
people have that reaction to ice cream.
Oh,
They get
God.
headaches from eating ice cream.
Oh, I feel so sorry for them.
But it's from the cold. It's not from the ice cream itself.
No, I understand that, but I mean, because I love ice cream.
Mm.
So I can understand that.
I think one of the other things I'd like to say in terms of health, since you mentioned loving ice cream, and most of the people in the world are allergic to dairy or lactose intolerant. I would say that probably few people can actually digest dairy products as well as they think they can. And in truth, in terms of a holistic perspective, milk is not a necessary nutrient. The dairy industry would really like us to believe that because they certainly make a lot of money on that. And milk definitely does have vitamin D in it and calcium, there's no question. But the vitamin D is added in the dairy, it's not naturally in milk.
Mm-hmm.
And there are much better forms of calcium, much more easily absorbable forms of calcium. There's a reporter who writes that even people who are lactose intolerant can probably drink half a cup of milk twice a day to make sure they get their daily calcium levels. And I say they could just as easily eat half a cup of dark leafy greens and get their calcium levels. It keeps the dairy board in money, and it keeps us, a lot of people, really sick and not able to figure out what's wrong with them because they're allergic to milk or unable to digest it very well.
Oh,
So
that's too
there are
bad.
two dairy allergies, the protein in dairy
Mm-hmm.
and lactose intolerance. So you don't necessarily have to have both, but most people have one or the other.
Well, this is fascinating. And Doctor, I'm sorry, but we're out of time. And I thank you for joining us. And
It was a pleasure to be here.
good, and we'll talk some more because I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg in good health. And thank you for joining us. I hope you've learned something about good health too. Bye now.